I never thought I'd be one of those guys who ends up getting blindsided by his wife's betrayal, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been married to Lisa for about 10 years. We'd always had our ups and downs, but I genuinely thought we were solid. We had a nice life, decent jobs, a house in the suburbs, and 2 kids who keep us busy. I was in finance myself, so I thought I knew the ins and outs of money, but honestly, I was pretty clueless about the kind of stress that comes with retirement planning. Looking back, there were subtle signs that something was off. Lisa had been unusually bitchy lately, snapping at every little thing and brushing me off more than usual. I chalked it up to her stress at work or just being tired. She also started canceling plans with friends, saying she was too busy or just didn't feel like going out. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured maybe she was just burnt out or maybe she was hiding something. But I never imagined the truth was right under my nose, concealed behind her bitchiness and her lies. The real wake-up call came when I started noticing her phone acting weird. She'd always been secretive with her phone, tucking it away, locking it more often, deleting messages. I knew enough to know that was suspicious, especially because she'd never been that protective over her phone before. One day, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I couldn't help myself. I picked it up and decided to glance at her messages. I didn't think I'd find anything, honestly. I just wanted to see if she was hiding something from me, which I was starting to suspect she was. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were texts, flirty, provocative texts, between Lisa and some guy named David. I recognized his name as the financial advisor we'd been working with for retirement planning. I'd never suspected a thing about their relationship, and honestly, I thought he was just a professional contact. But the messages told a different story. They weren't just discussing money. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about how much they enjoyed each other's company when no one was looking. My mind started racing. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. All those times she was distant and irritable, all those little lies about where she'd been or who she'd been texting, she'd been sneaking around with him. That moment of discovery was pure chaos. I stared at her phone, trying to process what I was seeing, and I felt a mixture of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. My wife, the woman I trusted with my life, was cheating on me with a guy who was supposed to just be helping us secure our future. It was too much to take in all at once. I put her phone back softly on the counter and just stood there, stunned. I couldn't believe I was looking at this. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake her until she told me it was all a mistake. But I kept my composure. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew I'd have to be careful. Because the truth was, once you see something like that, your entire world shifts. Nothing feels real anymore. I kept telling myself that I'd get through it, but deep down, I knew my marriage had just changed forever. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying what I had seen on her phone, trying to make sense of it all. How could Lisa do this to me, to us? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind or just plain naive. She always played the victim card, saying I didn't pay enough attention, that I was too busy with work. And now I realize how much she'd been hiding. The next morning, I decided I needed to confront her. I didn't want to blow up right away, not yet. I wanted to hear what she'd say, see if she'd lie her way out of it or own up like I knew damn well she should. I was angry, but I also felt sick to my stomach. I kept thinking about all the nights she'd been distant, all the times I'd accused her of something and she'd just brush me off with a bitchy remark. Turns out I was right about something, just not in the way I'd imagined. Lisa was in the kitchen when I walked in, pouring herself a coffee. She looked up, saw my face, and immediately knew I knew her. Eyes flickered with that guilty look and her lips curled into her typical smirk, like she was trying to act innocent, like I was overreacting. I could see the defiance in her eyes. Her voice was clipped, dismissive when she asked what was wrong. I just stared at her, feeling every ounce of betrayal hit me like a freight train. "Lisa," I said, voice trembling, "I saw your messages, the ones with David. How long has this been going on?" Her face instantly hardened, and she started her usual bullshit, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that he was just helping with the finances. She looked me dead in the eye and lied her ass off, insisting their messages were innocent, just about the retirement plan, about meetings, about discussing the market. She was so good at lying, I almost wanted to believe her. Almost. But I knew better. I knew the truth was right there in front of me, staring me down. I told her I had seen everything, that I wasn't stupid, that I knew she was cheating, and I demanded an explanation. Her reaction was classic Lisa, shrill, bitchy, trying to turn it around on me. She threw accusations at me, that I was insecure, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous. She called me controlling, said I was blowing things out of proportion. She said she'd never cheat, that I was just imagining it all, that I was overreacting because I didn't understand her. I wanted to punch her. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stood there, stunned. Watching her lie like that, trying to manipulate me like I was some dumbass who didn't know what was happening, made me realize how much of a facade she'd built around herself. She was good at spinning stories, at pretending she was the victim in all this, but I saw through it. She was the one betraying me, lying to my face, and trying to make herself look innocent. That moment was the eye-opener. I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug or pretend it didn't happen. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity. I wanted to believe her, of course, because I loved her and I thought we had something real. But deep inside, I knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. The woman I married was a liar, and the man she was cheating with was someone I had trusted with our future. That realization hit me hard. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, a liar, a cheat. Every time I saw her, I saw someone I couldn't trust anymore. It was like the foundation of our marriage had crumbled in an instant. She kept insisting she was innocent, that it was just a mistake, that she loved me and only me. But her words felt hollow, rehearsed, like she was just trying to save her own skin. I spent the next few days oscillating between angry rages and deep sadness. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her messages, her lies, and the moments I'd missed. I realized that everything I'd believed about us, our future, our stability, was now in question. My mind kept circling around one thing: what do I do now? Do I just forgive and forget? Do I confront David? Do I walk away? But the thing that gnawed at me the most was the idea of revenge. Yeah, I know that sounds petty, but honestly I couldn't stand the thought of her getting away with it, acting like the innocent victim while she screwed around behind my back. I wanted her to feel what I felt: utter devastation, betrayal, humiliation. I wanted her to realize that what she did wasn't just a mistake. It was a dagger to the heart of everything we built together. So I started planning. At first, I thought about just confronting her again, maybe telling her I knew everything and demanding she end it with David. But then I realized that wouldn't be enough. I wanted to hit her where it hurt, make her see that I wasn't some naive fool who'd let her get away with it. I decided I was going to find a way to turn the tables, to make her regret what she'd done, and maybe, just maybe, make her see that she lost the best thing she ever had. I started digging into David's background, figuring out who he really was, what kind of guy he was beyond just being a financial advisor. I also looked into ways to expose their affair discreetly, knowing that making a scene would only make things worse, at least for now. I wasn't just thinking about revenge. I was thinking about sending a clear message that I wasn't going to be played for a fool. And then I found her phone again. This time I didn't just glance, it was time to dig deeper. I pulled up her messages, her emails, her social media. I wanted to see everything, every lie, every betrayal. That's when I saw something that changed everything. A detailed plan, a date they'd agreed to meet up, a hotel reservation, even a secret code she'd been using with him to hide their plans. It was airtight. She was fully committed to this affair. My stomach clenched. I felt a boiling rage rise up inside me. I knew her better than she thought. I knew she was a bitchy liar, but now I saw the full extent of her treachery. This wasn't just some fling. This was a full-blown betrayal that I couldn't ignore anymore. I had to decide what to do next, and I knew with absolute certainty that I wouldn't let her get away with it. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept circling back to that plan I had started forming, how to make her see that I wasn't some naive husband who would accept being betrayed and tossed aside. I wasn't going to just pack up and leave without making her feel the pain she had caused. I mean, what kind of woman cheats on her husband during retirement planning of all things? That's just low. I decided I needed leverage, something concrete that would shake her to her core. So I reached out to David's assistant, a woman named Emily who I knew worked closely with him. I didn't want to do anything reckless, no public scenes or outright threats, just enough to rattle her. I told her I knew about her boss and Lisa, that I had proof of their plans to meet and that I wasn't going to let this slide. Just enough to make her realize I was aware that I wasn't some pushover. To my surprise, Emily didn't dismiss me outright. Instead, she said she'd look into it, that she was just doing her job but didn't want to be involved in any drama. That's when I realized this might actually work in my favor. If she reported this to compliance, it could blow everything wide open. I knew David had a reputation to uphold, and if the company found out he was screwing around with a client's wife, it wouldn't be pretty for him. Meanwhile, Lisa was still insisting she loved me, still denying everything. She'd spin her stories, say she was stressed, that I was overreacting, that David was just a financial advisor helping us with retirement. She kept saying I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her, but I wasn't listening anymore. I knew the truth, and I was going to make sure she paid for her lies. One night I got into her phone again just to confirm she hadn't deleted the evidence. What I found was worse. More messages, more plans, even a secret email chain with David. I couldn't believe she'd been so brazen. I printed everything out, saved it securely, and prepared myself for what needed to come next. I had to be careful. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make damn sure she felt the consequences. I started drafting a plan to expose her. I knew her ego, her bitchy attitude. She hated to be humiliated. I wanted to give her a taste of that. But I also knew I had to be strategic, wait for the right moment, gather all my evidence, and then strike. I wasn't just going to walk away from this. I was going to make her regret every damn lie she told me. And so I waited, watching her every move, knowing that the next step could change everything forever. I had never felt so cold and so determined in my life. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was left of my dignity, exposing her for the lying, cheating bitch she was. I knew she thought she was clever, but I was about to show her just how wrong she was. The waiting was the hardest part. I stayed up nights, obsessively going over everything I'd uncovered. Every text, every plan, every lie. I knew I had enough to blow her world apart, but I needed the right moment. I didn't want to do anything rash. I wanted her to realize that her actions had consequences, that her lies would catch up with her. One day, I decided it was time. I had all the evidence I needed: screenshots, printed messages, her secret email chain. I also knew about the hotel reservation she'd made for their meetup. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was planning to expose her in front of everyone. I wanted her to see what betrayal really looked like. I wanted her to feel the humiliation of losing everything. I set the plan in motion. I called her for a talk, pretending I wanted to discuss our future. She was bitchy and dismissive from the start, trying to brush me off, saying I was overreacting again. I kept my cool, played the part of the concerned but betrayed husband. I told her I knew about David, about the messages, about the hotel. Her face went pale for a split second, but she quickly recovered, spinning her usual lies about how I was crazy, how she'd never do something so stupid, how it was all a misunderstanding. That's when I pulled out my phone, started showing her the evidence. Her face twisted in anger, denial, then outright panic. I could see her beginning to realize that I wasn't bluffing. I had her dead to rights. I told her I was going to send all this to her parents, her friends, and the company's compliance department. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. Her bitchy facade cracked, and she started screaming at me, calling me jealous, insecure, a control freak. But I wasn't having any of it. I just kept recording her reactions, knowing I'd use this later. She stormed out of the room, desperately trying to deny everything, but I knew her game. I wasn't going to let her save face anymore. That evening, I sent all the evidence to her boss and the compliance officers. I wanted them to see what she'd been up to, how she was cheating on me with our financial advisor, planning secret meetings, lying through her teeth. It was all there. I knew this would have repercussions, and I was ready for whatever came next. The fallout was swift. Within days, her phone was confiscated, her access to the advisor's accounts was cut off, and her boss started an internal investigation. She turned into a bitchy mess, trying to deny everything, but her lies crumbled under the weight of the evidence. And the worst part, seeing her come apart, realizing she couldn't manipulate her way out of this one. Her ego was crushed, her reputation in shambles, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd finally pulled the trigger on the betrayal, and it felt like the end of a nightmare I'd been living for months. But even after all that, I was left with questions. Did I do the right thing? Was justice served? Or was I just another fool who let anger and betrayal consume him? I guess I'll never know for sure. What I do know is that I'm done pretending everything's okay. I've learned that the truth hurts, but it also sets you free. And sometimes you have to fight back, no matter how harsh it feels. Because if you don't, who will? Now, sitting here looking back at everything, I realize how much this whole mess changed me. I used to think that love and trust were everything in a marriage, but I've come to see that sometimes people are just capable of hiding the worst beneath a pretty face and a manipulative smile. Lisa thought she could get away with cheating, with lying, and with pretending she was innocent. But I learned that the truth finds a way to come out, no matter how hard you try to hide it. The aftermath has been a roller coaster. I filed for divorce shortly after everything fell apart, and honestly, it's been a relief. No more pretending, no more pretending to be okay with her bitchy attitude or her lies. I've moved out, and I'm rebuilding my life one step at a time. It's not easy. I still feel the sting of betrayal, and I won't say I don't have moments where I feel angry or sad. But I've learned to stand up for myself, to trust my instincts, and to recognize red flags before they turn into disasters. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your gut. Don't ignore your feelings, and don't let anyone manipulate you with their lies. People are capable of hiding dark truths, even behind a smile. And if you find yourself in a situation where you suspect betrayal, don't be afraid to dig deep, to gather evidence, and to stand your ground. It might hurt in the moment, but in the end, you're better off knowing the truth. One last thing: I've realized that revenge, while tempting, isn't always the answer. What I did was necessary for me to move on, but I also learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, holding your dignity intact. Lisa's lies and betrayal showed me how fragile trust can be, but they also taught me my own strength. I'll never forget what happened, but I won't let it define me. I'm moving forward, wiser and more cautious than before. And honestly, that's a kind of freedom I never knew I needed.